Math, such a complex subject to learn about with rules to follow like finding the value of x or following the order of operations and apply to daily scenarios. Math might be hard and frustrating, but we should appreciate it. Geometry has been around for ages. There are different types of geometry, with its history and evolution everywhere. Geometry has shaped our future, changing astronomy and engineering forever. Geometry's backstory might be more interesting than you imagine. Geometry is not just one subject and a branch of math. It does have its own branches. The most common type of geometry is Euclidean geometry, discovered in 300 BC. It was named after a Greek mathematician named Euclid. All of the rules are listed and described in his book called Elements. Euclidean geometry was so important that no other one was used until 2,000 years later. They even named a city in Ohio in 1809 after him. It is more than 35 square miles, and inside the city there are also schools with Euclid as their name. Non-Euclidean geometry is basically the add-on of Euclidean geometry. It has an extension of all Euclidean geometry's 4 principles and postulates, but with its own viewpoints and sometimes disagreements. It took off in the 19th century, making it the latest one. It is said that non-Euclidean geometry marked the end of human thought. Analytic geometry is a branch of algebra that is used to model geometric shapes. It includes the coordinate system, lines, and curves. It models non-Euclidean geometry as well. René Descartes is the responsible one for applying these rules in the 12th century. He actually was obsessed with creating analytic geometry that he never got out of bed before 11 in the morning. René also would sleep with ovens and have dreams of mathematical situations. One of his most important quotes is, "I think, therefore I am." Now, during all of this process of developing geometry, they used this new idea of math to use. Some examples of our uses of geometry in careers are astronomers, architects, ship navigators, and measuring property. But throughout 2000 to 500 BC, history used it too, not only right now. Ahmes had its own pi, 3.14, 15, 92, 65, 35, 9, and so on. The Egyptians used geometry in construction projects by calculating the height and shapes. Babylonians described the Pythagorean relation theorem in tablets. Lastly, Greeks used and practiced geometry for centuries. These are all examples of geometry used in history and shows its different ways used, showing that geometry is important. Geometry still lives on. It is applied in some careers like engineering, especially civil engineering. Civil engineering includes the design of shapes, quantities, lengths, areas. This leads to another career, which is astronomy. Astronomy is basically geometry in action as said in the definition. It is also the science of objects and matter beyond Earth's atmosphere. If it is geometry in action, it must have geometry in it. What does astronomy use as geometry? Calculating speed, velocity, momentum, direction, distance, relativity, and probability is geometry. Some other examples are the parallax measurements. Gravitational forces come from vector, angular diameters come from linear, and orbits come from measurements. Who knew something so fascinating was made of math? What a miracle!